time to shine today, Varsity Squad. It is Scott Ferguson, and I got me a fellow Midwesterner here. I'm in South Florida, and she's in the Twin Cities there in Minnesota. But we're both from the Mitten. We're both from Michigan. And I love my Michigan people, even though she's a U of M fan and I'm a Sparty. But we'll get along here for the next 20, 30 minutes. I have my really good friend, Ann Holm, from annholm.net. And Ann is a professional certified coach specializing in executive career by the way of focusing on self-awareness and mental fitness. She's a Myers-Briggs type indicator, steps 1 and 2 certified, and that's what she's known with her extensive experience. She also has 25 years of experience in applied brain sciences. I can't wait to get in the neuro side of this conversation, using her hands-on experience to help her coaching clients stay focused and energized given the demands of the 21st century workplace. She's also collaborating on a book, which we'll touch base on towards the end of the interview, that will be coming out in 2021. So, Ann, please, I'm so grateful that you're here. Come on, introduce yourself to the Time to Shine Today Varsity Squad. But first, what is your favorite color and why?
That's an easy answer. It's blue.
All
Go
right.
blue.
Why is it blue, Ann?
Well, okay, so truthfully, I said blue because I'm a Wolverine, a Michigan Wolverine, go blue. But I actually prefer orange of all colors. Orange because there's a lot of power in it and a lot of warmth in it. So
beautiful.
That would probably be my real answer. But for you today, it's blue. Go blue. Yes.
Go blue. I love it.
It's definitely not green.
So let's get to the origins of Ann. I know that you kind of grew up in the Mitten. We were there at the same time. Let's get to origins, and then we have how we leveled up to annholm.net.
Okay, so my background is I worked for 25 years as a speech pathologist. So I went to University of Michigan for my undergrad and my master's degree, and I worked with brain injury. So, and I did that for 25 years. And why that is significant is because I worked with the brain sort of in the trenches. So I worked with individuals who were very, very low, nearly in coma, if not coma. And I worked with individuals who were trying to recapture their life after brain trauma. And so I saw a wide range of human behavior and was able to apply brain science in order to help individuals move along. So, and, move toward recovery, toward a meaningful life. So, from there, I got, how do I want to say this? Well, I'm just going to say it straight up.
Yeah.
The paperwork got to me, to be truthful. The paperwork became more and more heavy, more and more documentation, more and more time spent on the computer, and I wasn't having fun anymore. So I decided, well, what else could I do that would be interesting and would help people uncover the potential? And 12 years ago, I went into coaching. So that's sort of was my journey from a previous work to the work I do today.
Love it. So do you think that when you went into, we'll call it private practice for yourself with coaching, do you feel less handcuffed because there's not as much kind of like the paperwork and you're able to really delve deep into your clients?
It's interesting. Yes, I would say absolutely, because I didn't have to do the kind of paperwork I had to do in the medical setting. I was absolutely left to be a little bit freer to explore. But there were a lot of challenges that I didn't anticipate when I went from that setting to coaching. And the biggest one was letting go of this idea that I was an expert. Because when you are a speech pathologist, you're working with brain injury, you're in healthcare, they're asking you, what do we need to do here? What's the next step? What do you do? You led a lot of this trajectory as far as what you were going to do with this client. But I had to really let go of that when I went into coaching, because now you're really tapping into people's internal wisdom. And so asking broader questions, listening a little bit more carefully, and letting go of this idea of expertise. And then coming back and recapturing expertise and putting it in its right place when you work as a coach. So I threw expertise out the window and then realized I had to bring a little of it back. But that was probably the biggest adjustment is from that, even though I was let free to not have to worry about paperwork.
Sure. So you put in the time at school. You worked in kind of the basically getting people rewired and ready to go after brain injuries, possibly, if I heard
Yep,
that right. But
that's correct.
what does your family think about you going into private practice when you kind of went to school for this and were working
Mm.
with that? How was their take on that?
Well, so for instance, my mother said, all those years that you spent
That's why
on
I asked the question. Right,
yes.
right, yeah.
And my husband called it my experiment and my hobby. And so
Right.
that was actually, that was hard. And so there's that kind of career change does require a little bit of confidence in yourself that you can make that switch.
Right.
I remember the day that I decided not to renew my speech pathology license,
Hmm.
where I thought, I'm not going to go back to that. I think I'm going this way now.
Hmm.
But there was some questions for sure,
Sure.
and perhaps a little bit of scoffing.
I bet. And then that's now that it's like you don't seem like an egotistical person, but kind of inside you can be like, look at me though. I pushed through, I failed
Yep.
forward when I needed to. That's
Yep.
fantastic. So what do you think makes a great coach?
Ah, boy. I think there's a combination here. So when I first went into coaching, there was a heavy emphasis on powerful questions, and all of that. And I think those are really key. Those powerful questions, those explorations that you do with a client, so that they understand who they are and how they think and all of that. But I also think you want to bring in some information and knowledge to help an individual consider it in order that they can streamline the coaching process. So, for instance, um, the MBTI is one way a person can jumpstart their coaching journey, by way of trying to understand sort of where they are at ground level. So, fundamentally, this is probably where you are, and this is your opportunity to grow from here. So bringing that in versus trying to ask powerful questions that is going to get somebody to understand, for instance, oh, I really love big ideas and patterns, and but sometimes I don't pay attention to details. Well, if you can just call that out and say, does this sound like you, then you can jumpstart and move on with the journey.
Love it. So
So
why MBTI and not the disc or any of the other
okay.
ones that were out there?
Yeah, so that's a really, really good question. While using a BTI, I also use an instrument called Type Coach, which is
Mhm.
also a Jungian instrument. Um, I like these instruments if they're used properly, and a lot of times they're not. People say, here, this is my type, and then they
Sure.
put themselves in a box and they say, well, I can't do details because I'm an ENFP, or I'm going to be late because I'm a P.
Right.
You don't use it as an
They
excuse
use as a
for
victim for
yeah,
it. Got
yeah,
it.
yeah,
Got it.
yeah, yeah. So it's a developmental model. So you're
Sure.
you're you're wanting to become grounded in your fundamental gifts, and then you also want to find uh, areas of development and improvement, and you're expected to develop. So because it's a developmental model. Actually, I'm reading a new book that was just came out by Dr. Dario Nardi, and it's talking exactly about developmental paths for each of the types and ways to get at it, and what are the most likely routes. These aren't things that you prescribe to somebody,
Sure.
but you offer to them for consideration.
And it also keeps them from making excuses on what they're lacking in, because a lot of people like you, I have a certain program that I use for personality traits and whatnot, but a lot of
Yeah.
people like, well, I'm just slow here. Well, that's why I'm here, to help
Yep,
you
yep,
blast through that weaknesses. That's awesome. So
yep.
then, if you don't mind sharing, when you're bringing somebody in, maybe the discovery period, or they've
Mhm.
hired you, what kind of secret sauce do you use to maybe help them find their blind spots?
Oh, okay. So a lot of this is around asking really good questions, because
Yeah.
this is something where I can bring in my brain injury experience to explain this. So self-awareness is not something that is peeled back and aha, here we are. This is the truth. Self-awareness comes in layers. So for instance, I'll use a brain injury example just to illustrate this, but you could get somebody in the hospital, come into my office, get me out of here. I got to go back to work. Well, okay, so you got a bit of a memory problem, so we've got to work on that first. I don't have a memory problem. And then maybe 2 or 3 days later, they come in and they say they have a memory problem, but they don't understand the deep implications of what that actually means. They can list it. So for instance, if somebody has a blind spot, taking it out of brain injury and just to normal, development, if a person says, yeah, I tend to be late, that is a very cursory level of self-awareness. The next thing is, how does that impact my life and the life of others? That's a whole nother level of self-awareness. And so to get there, you don't jump from, oh yeah, I tend to be late, to this has a huge impact on my life. And then you got to get to the level where you actually care about it, because you might say, yeah, it has an impact, but you know what? That's just my flaw. That's the way it's going to be.
Right.
So you've got to get to these layers of self-awareness that allow for you to feel the impact, embody the impact, and then decide it's worth your time to change.
Love that. That is one of the best explanations I've ever heard about self-awareness and how you can really level that area up. So let's piggyback on that last question.
Sure.
If you bring somebody in, is there any good question that you wish they would ask you but never do?
Well, that's a really good question. Usually when they come in, they always kind of want to know what's it gonna look like, and
Sure.
how much is it gonna cost, and those
Absolutely.
kinds of practical questions. Um, Boy, that's a really good
I
question.
get that all the time. I want them to ask me, what do you want from me? You know what I'm saying? That
Okay.
as the person, I wish that they would, because they're coming to you saying, you're the magic pill,
Yeah,
So
yeah,
the work, what
yeah,
you just explained about self-awareness, there's what we say here at Time to Shine today is inch by inch, it's a cinch. By the yard, it's hard. It's like there's little
yeah.
parts of self-awareness that's broke down into those little parts. But
Yes.
I know if I hired you, I'd be like, what am I gonna have to do? And what are you
Yeah.
expecting from me? Which I wish they would,
Yeah.
because a lot of times the people you probably take on are
Yeah.
high ego. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah.
Leaders and stuff like that. And they won't step back
Yeah.
and ask that. But
Yeah. Well, and the thing is too, is that many of the things that we do are a matter of habit.
yes.
So this is where this mental fitness piece comes in the work that I do,
Mhm.
is so you could get those aha moments. You can say, oh,
Right.
gosh, I mean, I got to start working on this, or I'm restless and I keep jumping from thing to thing. But you have to have some way to make those changes. And so
Love it.
you have to be able to settle your mind down enough and create muscles in the other direction. So I use
Yes.
this thing called positive intelligence, which I use as sort of a supplement to the work that I do,
Mm.
because you have to support the possibility that you can create these new brain pathways. I mean, you've been doing this stuff for a long, long
Sure.
time. So,
Right.
and part of part of lack of self-awareness is around the defensiveness for why you do certain things.
Right.
Like my mother, who's a very detail-oriented person, would say, you missed that, you missed that. And I'd say, it doesn't matter. But maybe it does. Maybe it
Right.
does
Sure.
matter. But if
Right.
you're defensive and you're feeling attacked,
Right.
you're never going to get to the level. So you have to have multiple pieces coming together.
Love it. So if I'm at a networking event, which we're allowed to do here in South Florida pretty much,
Yeah.
press and flash, meeting people,
Yeah.
what kind of things might someone be saying to me that would make them a great referral, contact, or connection for Ann?
So I would say, I want to make sure that I have the question straight. So if you were in a networking event
Mhm.
and you said, aha, I know this person who could help you, what kind of person would be saying that? Is that what you're
Yeah.
doing?
Yeah. What am I
Okay.
listening for? Because I love to connect
Yeah.
people. And that's what we do. We're a hub here at Time to Shine today.
Yep. Yep. So you would be listening for individuals who are looking to enhance leadership, communication, team building, but I also would emphasize individuals who are really wanting to understand at a very deep level their strengths, their blind spots, the implications of those. They're motivated to take it to the next level. Those are the individuals who I would be working with.
Love it.
So,
Love that.
yep, the
So let's,
self-awareness piece is huge.
yes. Yes. So let's get in our DeLorean with Marty McFly. Remember him from Back to the Future?
Oh, yeah, 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 yeah,
So
yeah, yeah, yeah,
let's get in our
yes.
DeLorean. Let's go back to the 22-year-old Ann. What kind
Yes.
of knowledge nuggets are you dropping on her? We call them knowledge nuggets here at Time to Shine today. What kind of
Okay.
knowledge nuggets are you dropping on her to help her maybe shorten her learning curve and level up and blast through?
Okay. So if I was talking to my 22-year-old self,
You
I
went
would,
back and visited her. What are you
yep,
telling her?
yep. I would say your free spiritedness is an excellent part of who you are. Understand there's also a downside to that, or a flip side. And if you could recognize the difference, if you could slow your brain down enough to be able to recognize the difference, you wouldn't have to uh, backpedal, make excuses, zig and zag
Sure.
to make up for something that you might have been able to do differently and save yourself a lot of trouble.
Would she have listened?
Uh, Probably not.
Mine wouldn't either, but I would have probably almost
Oh,
the same thing that what you're saying. Um,
yeah,
so
yeah.
how do you want your dash remembered? And that little mark in between your incarnation date and your expiration date, how do you want Ann Holmes' dash remembered?
Oh, I love that. I would like to be remembered as somebody who really contributed to the coaching conversation around self-awareness and what to do about it.
Love it.
Because I can, when I've also raised 3 children. They're in their 20s and 30s.
Wow.
And everything that I've done, from my work in brain injury to my parenting, to my interactions with the friends of my children, to my work in coaching, has been about trying to help people understand who they are, strengths and blind spots, try to make it as fun as possible to uncover their potential, to uncover their self-awareness, to reach a new height. That's how I want to be remembered, is all the
Love it.
people I've touched in that way.
Just a true go-giver that you are. Thank you so much for saying that. So let's take out our cell phone, tablets, computers, anything electronic.
Mm.
What's 3 things that Ann can't live without?
Ah, okay. I can't live without my family.
Love it.
Um, my 3 children, my husband, and my mom and nieces, nephews. So my family. I can't live without nature,
Love it.
beautiful trees, water. Can't live without nature, and I can't live without watermelon.
Watermelon. That's awesome.
Oh,
Never heard
yes.
that before, but if you like the watermelon, I'm always, my third one would always be chicken wings. So
Oh, yeah, no, watermelon. I
I
can't.
love it. I love it. And what's your definition of a life well lived?
A life well lived is one in which you both give and receive, because I think sometimes we think that the only thing we can do is give, but when you receive graciously, you're actually giving also.
Yes.
So,
Yes. Thank you for
uh,
saying that. That law of receptivity. A lot of people forget about that.
yeah,
That's
yeah.
fantastic. Thank you for saying that. So as we as we wind things down just a little bit here, and
Hmm.
I have my leveling up lightning round, you and I could talk an hour
Yep.
plus on each one of these questions, but you got 5 seconds.
Okay.
Okay. So you're on the spot. No, they're super easy. You can answer in 5 seconds. No explanation. Like
Okay.
producers like 5. He's funny.
Okay.
But
All right. I'm ready
okay.
for this.
You ready? Let's level up.
All right.
What's the best leveling up advice you've ever received?
5 seconds I have. Learn.
There you go. Share one of your personal habits that contributes to your success.
Walking.
Okay. Love that. Not the book that you're writing, not the book that you're reading, or the flavor of the month. If I'm in my doldrums and I'm not feeling it, say, Fergie, here's the book. I want you to read it.
Wow. That's a man. Let's see. Peter the Great.
Okay. Okay. Fair enough. When you're texting, what's your most commonly used emoji?
The um, lately the green virus.
Okay. Love it. So not wisdomly, physically, and you're allowed to still learn in wisdom and everything physically. What age would you stay for the rest of your life?
Physically,
Physically.
I would say 30.
There you go. I love it. I love 30 to 32. That was such a magnificent time for me. What's your favorite charity and or organization you like to give your time and or money to?
Anything that has to do with animals.
Love it.
So World Wildlife Fund. Yeah.
Yay. So last question. It's a little bit harder, and you can actually explain this one, but what is the best decade of music? 60s, 70s, 80s, or 90s?
I already know that. Anytime with the Beatles. So that would be
The
60s,
60s and some
60s.
70s. Love it.
Yep,
Love
yep,
it.
yep. Uh-huh.
Awesome. Awesome. So, Ann, how can we find you?
You can go to my website, annholm.net,
Mhm.
and I do offer free consultations. So if individuals want to explore both self-awareness or this idea of mental fitness, they can book a free consultation. I actually have several podcasts because I've been on several of them. I'm
Sure.
very excited to be on yours, and so I'm
Yeah.
glad I can add that. Blogs. So I got a lot of information on my website as well as an opportunity to connect. So,
Love that.
andhome.net. You can find me on LinkedIn too. And
Beautiful.
Twitter. I only retweet it if I have read it. That's my
Okay.
big moniker. I
Very
don't
good.
tweet it if I don't read it and really
You don't tweet
understand
if you
it.
don't read it. Love it. That's a golden
That's
rule
right.
right there. So tell us a little bit about this book.
Okay, so this book that I'm writing it with Dr. Jane Kesey,
Mhm.
and we're writing it about brain bandwidth. So what that means is, so we were working on a project with education leaders. Jane is she's an MBTI expert, and we do a lot of work together. Psychological type, we like to use the term psychological type because it encompasses other instruments. Anyway, so she and I were doing some work for Minnesota State colleges and universities, and we had done it 2 years prior to that, and then we came on to the project again. And what we found was that these individuals were having a really hard time just making simple appointments, whereas 2 years before that, they weren't having any
Mhm.
problem. And what we discovered is that people were stretched beyond their bandwidth in multiple arenas and in multiple spheres. So what we did was we came up with an instrument to try to get at that. How are people fueling themselves? How are they focusing? How are they filtering information so they
Sure.
can maximize bandwidth? And we actually came up with a survey, and you're going to like this part. We went to a statistician who's a Sparty.
There you go.
There you go.
You
And
did it right.
he helped us out with looking at this statistically to see if what we were looking at actually was measuring what we hoped it was measuring. So this project in the making was this survey, and then we were asked to write a book. This is a book that's for the K through 12 education
Okay.
people, but it's Jane has authored 20 books already, so I think I'm going to get it done because I'm with
Good.
somebody who actually gets it done.
Yeah.
But so it's about brain and bandwidth. So
Love it.
how are you fueling your brain? How are you filtering the things around you? How are you focusing? And how is your organization supporting these
What's the
habits?
name of
So
it going to be?
uh, we have a working title,
You don't have to share it. Make
brain
sure you get it to
bandwidth.
us before you get out.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
can't remember.
Awesome.
I'd have to go back at the contract and look because I think we fiddled around with it a few times.
Love
So
it. Love
yeah,
it. And squad, you've just been really gifted a free masterclass from my good friend and fellow Michigander,
yes.
Ann Holm. She's going to use the MBTI method to find out where you're at ground level and help you level up from there. She also used the type form or type coach as well. She reminds us to be grounded in our fundamental gifts while leveling up the areas where you are weak. And the way you can do that is hire someone like Ann. She's going to remind us that self-awareness, which we talked a lot about, comes to us and it comes in layers. You need to realize how it impacts you and others and care about it to really level up. And when you have a solid coach like Ann, she's going to help you walk through that path. she's going to enhance leadership and communication and understand at a deep level of their weaknesses. So that's stuff. And, I wrote so fast, I have a whole page of notes and I'm really going off of for this. She would remind her younger self to stay spirited and free spirited, but keep it in check and recognize the difference of what is working, what's not. So if you're younger out there and you're really looking to level up, be relaxed, be free spirited, but keep it in check. Don't let the ego take over, but really, check and balances, like we like to say. She wants to be remembered, and she's a living legacy right now, that she contributed to the conversation around self-awareness. And she also lastly reminded us to not only give, but be open to receptivity, which we talk a lot about that here at Time to Shine today, because we're all go-givers, but we want to be open to receiving. And Anne is, and I'm open to receiving this fantastic masterclass. Anne is humble yet hungry. She levels up her health. She levels up her wealth. The only thing wrong with her is she's a U of M fan, but I'll let her slide just for today. Thank you so, and in all seriousness, Anne, thank you so much for coming out. I can't wait to get my hands on one of those books, and I'm going to give a free copy of Anne's book out, signed by Anne, when it does come out. So all you have to do is post in either the LinkedIn post for Anne, which it still might take a minute, but I'll make sure we keep a good note on it because it's not coming out till next year. But their podcast will drop way before the book's out. But I'll make sure Anne sends out a free copy, which I'll purchase and have her send out to you by posting either the LinkedIn or the Time to Shine Today Facebook page. Anne, thank you so much. I hope to be able to collaborate with you in the future and bring you back.
Yeah, it was really a lot of fun.
Out.
It was wonderful. Have a great day.
You too now. All right.